Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
So she comes from a generation, I believe, of astrologists. And I'm just so excited to dive deep into astrology. Let's talk about love. Let's talk about life. Let's talk about your journey. There's so much to unpack here. I mean, there's so much going on in the world right now. So this is going to be a jam-packed episode. But please introduce yourself and let us know who you are and what you're about.
Thank you so much for having me. I am Cara. I am a Latina astrologer and tarot reader and plant oracle. And I learned all things magical from my Tías, my mom's sisters. I grew up in Texas. I'm Mexican American. And they really encouraged me to just explore that kind of like ancient language of the stars and energy and healing with the natural world. And so I always thought it was like so witchy, but they really like carried that message through their faith and like being raised Catholic. So there's the kind of like, deep ritual there that I think was able to carry through lineages. And the more that like I kind of build a relationship to it now that I'm a Tia and I'm like bringing that magic, I just think there's a lot of work to be done in community, like grieving and healing and taking our power back and centering liberation and activating, our personal power. So that's kind of what I use astrology for and what I work with my clients with. So I'm so excited to talk with you today.
I love that. I mean, bringing religion into it, bringing being Catholic, raised Catholic is a huge part of this. It was, and grieving, I could go on and on about grieving. It's a beautiful space. I read a quote once that said, grief is a price we pay for like a lifetime of love. And it's a tough one to hear when you lose someone, but it's a beautiful thing as well. And ironically, I was at a celebration of life for my really good friend's brother not too long ago. And I decided to go to mass that morning. I hadn't been to mass in so long. And the father was talking about tarot readers and spiritualists. And he was like, look, a lot of these people mean good. They are here for good. They're here to help people. They're here to comfort them, to help them along their journey. And if they have good intentions, why are we shaming them? Like, why are we telling them they're doing something bad? And I was like, of course, I haven't been to mass in years. And the one that I come to in a space of grieving, that's what the father's talking about. Like I was recording it on my phone. So I'm like, no one's going to believe this. I have to have proof that this is happening. But it was just so beautiful. So what are your thoughts? Let's start with that. And then I want to get into your journey and how you started. But what are your thoughts first with spirituality and astrology?
That's so beautiful. And I think it just shows too, like when we follow our intuition, we're always in the right space at the right time to hear the right message, regardless of who's channeling it or what have you. So yeah, I really love reflecting on that, just like following your intuition. And so I really go inward. So for me, it's not necessarily religion, but I really appreciate how we've used different tools and channels to carry the message. Maybe there were different things you had to consider, and safety was one of them at this point, to where also coming from indigenous roots, maybe that was the only way to like disguise the message and carry forth the rituals because it's had to be left to oral tradition at this point. And so I think like carrying the message of those, who have passed is how we carry the legacy and like the flame and the torch. And so that's what I see it as because my tias taught me astrology and just really like channeled all of that magic with me. And I thought everybody had access to it. And so whenever I was curious, in Catholic school, like, Sunday school or what have you, I was asking a lot of questions and I was actually kind of shamed for it, for asking too many questions. But then whenever I sat, I was like 8 years old. It was like San Antonio in the 90s. And I sat with my tias and they cast my chart for me and they taught me how. And they taught me that I had a Gemini moon. And like this was in the 90s, right? So we were using like a ephemeris, which is like a book where you like, we're not doing it on the internet. And so that like just like that ritual of like casting it and finding that information together and reflecting on it, I learned I have a Gemini moon, which is curious and conversational. And so they were actually like, "Oh, you should ask more questions. You should be more." And like I have a Scorpio stellium, and they're like, "Oh, you're passionate. Like you should be more passionate. and so like that was actually the first tool, astrology and all of this kind of like matriarchal ancient language wisdom that I felt seen and
Mhm.
supported and like I could be more of myself. Maybe that's not always the message to a young brown girl in Texas. So for me, this was a tool of liberation and like remembering where we come from and seeing the patterns. And so just kind of really remembering that's where it started for me in the 90s. And I just thought at first I connected with my friends doing synastry, looking at compatibility, like it's so interesting, birthdays, numbers, it all means something. And then it wasn't until 2020 when I had my Saturn return, March of 2020,
Mm.
Saturn in Aquarius. And so, with that, it's this time basically, if you're unfamiliar with that term, when you're about 28 and you have this like full circle moment where you basically have to start living for yourself and not for others or what you think you should be doing. And so, for me, it was also a time where my Tías started to pass and I became a Tía. And I learned that like it's actually not lost. All of that when people pass on, there's still a relationship to something beyond view. And I think validating our feelings and emotions and intuitions is a great gateway to harness that. And so that's what I help people do, whether they're going through transformations or choosing where to live, because there's astrocartography. There's an endless study when it comes to astrology and the ancient translations and so many different types of ways to use this. That's why I love all the different types of astrologers. We all have, different values or just different ways of connecting with it. Like I center plants in astrology are a great gateway. So, getting out of the mind and getting into the body. So whether it's mind, body, and spirit, but just making sure you're kind of like honoring all of those different cups, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. Yeah.
That is, and how do you pronounce it again? Because the one where you see the where you look at, oh, there's a hummingbird right there. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, sorry. It was just like right in front of me.
I love, 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 love.
Oh, that was so pretty. It just like was floating right there. Oh my God. Not surprised. Sorry.
Truly, no, I'm here. I'm here for it. I love it. I just saw like bumblebees in my little garden. I just planted. I just moved into a new space.
Oh,
And so I'm trying to plant like certain things to and get a hummingbird feeder to just like invite in the
bring
butterflies.
them in. I'm always like, I'm Pocahontas. I know. Snow White Pocahontas something. Sorry. It was like right there. Um, what is it?
Astrocartography. Yeah, it's
Cartography.
real interesting. It is basically, you might be familiar with the map, and it lays over basically like your birth chart over the map of the world. And so you can see how your energy like transmutes in different spaces. And yes, like the map is super interesting. And so I love looking at the map and exploring the different lines. But there's also pulling your relocated chart for that space. So if you're moving or if you're traveling, I just did like an elopement for Iceland. That was really beautiful.
Oh.
Like I didn't go, but I did the astrocartography for it. And so you can just see how your energy plays out in different places in the world. And so, for example, coming from Texas, I have my chart in Texas, and yes, that's always my birth chart. But living in Portland, Oregon for 13 years, I actually live on my Mars line, and it puts my 12th house stellium into my first house to where I feel celebrated and I get to be who I am and do this work. And I just maybe feel a bit differently in Texas. But everyone's different everywhere. So it's just cool to see how it plays out for you.
Yeah. And then intention too, right? Because I love to tell when I'm doing readings for clients, I love to tell them like intention. What is that? What is it like? Intention's 9/10 of the law or something like that. And it's the spiritual law, I think, too. And that's another area I wanted to dive a little bit into is intention versus what your chart is saying. So when people are getting their charts, how do you feel about them overriding what the chart says?
I think I've never had to override what the chart says. I more so validate and celebrate it. And so sometimes I think a good example of this would be maybe someone's coming to talk about love,
Hmm.
and maybe they really want that to be the answer for them today.
Yeah.
And while I love that and I love love and I'm here for love readings, and like sometimes people are kind of like shy or embarrassed to be like, can we talk about love? I'm like, yes, let's. Like, we're people, like, people are here to love, like, let's love. So I love it. And I look at a certain place for maybe what they're asking. And maybe there's certain transits that are happening that right now, this is actually a theme of celebrating you and growing your, goals and becoming more of who you're going to be. And so I have empathy with that to say, I know you want it to be love in a partnership outside of yourself today, but this chart might be pointing back to you right now. And of course, sometimes people are like, it's always me. I'm always working with myself. And I just get to kind of like foreshadow, while this might be the season now, how do we forecast when it is the right time to move into that committed partnership? And so working with those patterns and like through inviting in rituals to ground yourself. And maybe it just looks like making tea in the morning and adding a bit of rose hips
Mm.
or rose water into your morning rituals. But like you said, intention is key. And so, like, that love doesn't actually exist outside of yourself, it exists within yourself. So, this is just an opportunity to remember that and celebrate that and think of all of the ways that that's already happening and existing around you. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, the hummingbird. And just little moments like that that kind of ground you into the present moment of like, I am love. I'm full
Hmm.
of love. Love is all around me. Even I know it might not feel like that all the time, but in those present moments where we can remind ourselves of that, I think there's so much opportunity there to really celebrate that. And then as the seasons grow and we experience time, maybe you find yourself in a season where you are in that partnership, and then you remember, oh wow, I'm so grateful that I cultivated that within myself first.
Hmm.
To now see the pattern of experiencing that in a different, relationships or what have you.
Yeah. And RuPaul said it best. He was like, if you don't love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love somebody else?
And it's a
And
journey and it's not
big.
linear.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that those who struggle with that are less worthy, you know? And so we get to just meet people where they are with astrology and
Hmm.
celebrate what they want. And there's a reason why they want it. That's within the chart.
Yeah.
Maybe today you're working with a little bit, of different energy. And so like
Hmm.
validating that, celebrating where you are. We're all in the right time. Even how we met today, and it's a full moon. Like it's just
Hmm.
when we're supposed to meet, just everything falls into place, the stars align. So I don't think you have to override nature. You have to just celebrate the season you're in. Sometimes you're in winter, but you have to acknowledge that. And you can't pretend that that's not the case. You have to take care of yourself differently. And you have to have goals that are aligned with nature. And so that might be creating a harvest, creating like a warm moment for yourself, using more lubricant, moisture, whatever it is
Yeah.
during those times that you feel like you're not getting what you need. And then celebrating when it is harvest season and taking
Hmm.
advantage of it. And that's really fun to do when people have intentions of like growth with their business or eloping in Iceland. Let's kind of, work with your intuition first, and then let's reflect on the patterns and celebrate. You're right on the money. That is when you should do that thing. And I
Yeah.
also love sometimes the message is rest. And living in a capitalistic society, we have to honor rest and value rest. And so just kind of remembering that, there's more than the physical outside of you. There's a lot within you as well. Remember
Yeah, the
that.
you are the medicine. Everything is within. I tell people in readings like I'm a speaker. I am just like I'm playing the music of your life. You're the composer, you're the producer, you're the writer. It's all just coming through me because you're the medicine, you're the answers. And I joke and I say I could pull a million cards. The answer is going to be the answer. Like it is you. You have to look at the, you talked about patterns and cycles. That's something I'm really good at is noticing patterns and cycles within people, but that doesn't mean they want to notice it within themselves. So we could give them all the cheat codes, if you will. We could give them all the answers, but until you're willing to take the inspired action and not the obsessive action, because that's going back into the rest and to detach, to surrender. And I get we have bills. I'm a single mom with two kids. 100% I'm on my own with them. No one takes care of them but me. And finding the rest in the hustle is challenging. Where do you look at someone's chart to help them honor their rest and feel comfortable with it?
Yes. And thank you so much for sharing that. I love when we're able to share those types of things in community and come together and support and help each other. And I just was talking to my friend who's a mom before this call, and one of the good people that I work with is a mom too. And I'm so grateful that not only like doing this work, I also get to babysit and I also get to be a tia. And it's like it takes a village. And so like I love whenever I'm doing these readings, like we have this like connection to be like, oh, my daughter's gonna come in to, XYZ, or I need to go give my kid a snack, or I might have to go pick someone up. And it's like I think whenever we're able to like come together and acknowledge and value all of that work that maybe in certain societies and cultures goes unnoticed,
Hmm.
I think that's where we start meeting people where they are, validating where they are, acknowledging it, and celebrating all of the hard work that's already been done. And so, using those patterns, I can look at the past and I can help note patterns and timelines in the past that feel so validating to just be like, okay, it's not me. I'm not doing anything wrong. These were the seasons, those were the themes. Thank you. We're good. Going forward, what's next? And so that's where I work with like the planets and maybe the signs they're ingressing into. And I look at your chart and I see where is that activating in your chart, maybe through the houses, through your personal placements. And so when certain planets go into certain signs, they enter a house in your birth chart. That's kind of like the stage or the theme of what that might represent for you. And so I start to highlight those themes and help people see the patterns, holding like a mirror, to
Yeah.
reflect. And through that, pulling some self-care ritual cards. Sometimes the cards will say rest. Another pattern I see that always indicates rest are the eclipses. When the eclipses come through, that's a lot of my work is when they're impacting people's personal birth charts. And so, for example, right now it's July 2025. If you have your sun, moon, rising, if you have personal placements within your chart within Virgo or Pisces, you're experiencing eclipses in those houses. So
Mm.
those south node is what we release, surrender, let go, and it's in Virgo. A lot of my charts in Virgo, everyone I'm talking to has Virgo placements. It's a big theme in like the people that I mentor, Venus, Virgo, Jupiter, Virgo. And it's those of us who want to do the work for there to be a safe, clean, organized harvest.
Mm.
And sometimes perfectionism and overthinking and overcritiquing might prevent us from fully, and so
Yeah.
that's okay. I celebrate. Thank you, Virgos. Thank you, Virgo energy. Without y'all, where would we be, And so celebrating that, validating that, but then also acknowledging we're doing the work of the oppressors for them when they're in our head and we're comparing ourselves to timelines and things like that. And so we have to think this is a 19-year cycle. What a perfect
Wow.
opportunity to throw this into the flame and to let this go. And for whatever placements it is for you, like for me, it's Venus and Jupiter. So I'm learning how to let go of maybe ways I've had to be in love and, just like celebrating, like, thank you for getting me here. And so that South Node is going to represent, there's going to be more rest, more retreat, more surrender, more letting go of control. So I'm definitely going to look at that within someone's chart and kind of speak to that while at the same time balancing the North Node of hunger and development in Pisces. We do have to stay connected to the vision. There is purpose in spiritual pursuit and creativity and mysticism and mystifying the mundane and that sustains us for the revolution. And so we can't do, it can't be like toxic positivity, right? We have to
Yeah.
be fully aware of like what's happening in the world and validate like truth. Yes, let's not look away. And at the same time, share more food, come together and move our bodies and breathe and just do these things. Like that's the ancient language and medicine of our ancestors that I hope to help remind folks of in community. And so I think being able to celebrate all the different seasons, whether it be rest or, the big moment of like apple picking and like
Hmm.
celebrating whatever it is, your goals are, but just celebrating where you're at in the journey as well.
Yeah, and it really, I love the idea of a harvest too. That really hits home because you don't plant a seed and then the next day you're like, why isn't it a giant tree? Like, where's my fruits? That is impossible. Like, name one fruit tree that has sprouted so big overnight. Like, I mean, maybe somebody could prove me wrong, but I highly doubt that's a thing.
No, you're right.
So,
I've always heard bamboo grows underground for 5 years before it
whoa.
sprouts. And so maybe I should fact check
Wow.
that before I keep repeating it, but it sounds so interesting because, sometimes we think, we've been doing the work for years. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's like, yeah. And, you're moving in alignment with your path. And like, there's ways that we can help like celebrate that and activate that and make you feel empowered with what you're doing. But I think, sometimes it is small acts of mindfulness when you're just waiting for your tea or your coffee that
Hmm.
can really help ground and harness your intentions. And so just helping people remember that like it isn't necessarily something outside of yourself.
Yeah, and the patience for sure. Like you think about when you're driving to work and you're actually on time, like you're ahead of time, you'll get all the green lights going to work because you have no attachment to the timeline. When you're in a rush, your purse gets caught on the door. There's a lot of traffic. You missed your exit. Someone cut you off. It's a beautiful balance of detachment when it comes to life. And it's not just manifestations. I feel just all of life, parenting, when I hover over my kids too much they get pissed off. They will be so annoyed. But when I kind of just like, facilitate the process and let them do what they got to do, make sure they're still being safe, but being able to make their choices is key. And with kids, do you get parents that come in because I've had a gal for numerology and talking about your kids. Do you have people come to you about their kids?
That is one of my favorite things. Yes. I
Oh,
absolutely love looking at families' charts. Coming from such a big family myself, it's so fascinating to see the patterns that exist within your family. Like, for example, my dad's big three, his sun, moon, rising, are me and my sister's sun signs. And then it
wow.
also is so validating to show how we have different relationships with, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just really helpful to be like, okay, we're all different. We get to celebrate how we're different. And so I love looking at the whole families or any relationship, business partners, whatever it is, right? And so yeah, seeing that synastry is so interesting. But I'm so glad you asked this because literally last week I had my youngest client, which was about 10 days old. And so it was like the mom's birthday. And so the dad surprised her and booked a little family session where I
Oh,
do my pop-ups in person here in Portland. And so it was so beautiful. And so just what a dream come true to be able to like share that excitement of
yeah.
celebrating the chart and seeing the patterns, with the mom's chart and just clarifying some things. So
Yeah.
love seeing family charts as well.
Getting like a little bird's eye view of the kids. And I think it really helps kind of, again, I'm really big on facilitating. My mom always told us, like, you don't belong to me. Like, you were given as a gift from God, and I can help you along the way, but you don't belong to me. And I thoroughly believe that. And my second kid, she's a Taurus double Pisces. And that kid is just, she thinks she's my father. My parents, God bless their souls, they did the best they could, but I dipped out when I was 15. I've been on my own since then. And that kid thinks she's my dad. And I'm
Shout
like,
out, same, yes.
I'm like, ma'am, you do know I got home late one night. She was up waiting for me with her on her iPad and she's like, that's funny. It's 1:45. I was like, I am grown. Who do you think you are to where you been?
That's so funny. That's so cute. And I love how we get to like celebrate, those different ways of being and even those patterns of being young and leaving same. And I see it in the chart and I see sometimes it's seen as like a square. And it's like
Mhm.
maybe like your sun square Saturn, and it's like a problem with authority. And I
Mm.
celebrate those things because at first, when you read about it, you think, oh no, tension and obstacle, my life is going to be hard. And I'm like, no, 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 wait, who translated that? And it wasn't first expressed in English. So English itself can be limiting. And so I know that that's what we look up and might fear. But through having worked with like thousands of charts, the actual expression through that is like when you swim and you push off the wall to go further. So you actually like go further with these squares that look like tension and obstacle, but through that we're able to go further. And so I always say thank God for my squares because without them I would be an accountant in Texas. Like that was the path that was supposed to be laid out for me. Like numbers, accountant, it's safe. That's what kind of my dad wanted. Capricorn energy, safety, do the work.
Yeah.
That's what we got to do.
Logical.
I'm a Sagittarius rising, Gemini moon, Scorpio stellium. So I was like, I'm going on a work tour. And
Yeah.
I like traveled. And so I did that for years. And I'm so happy that I was able to like travel and see the world, but then like come
Yeah.
back to the root of like, there is like a math of astrology whenever we celebrate these patterns and honor our authentic path, whatever that might be for you. And so for some of us, it is being an accountant. And I love that. We need accountants, like no shame.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm an accountant of the stars, and we need that as well. So
Mm.
just kind of like celebrating all of the ways that we can access, our skills and our talents today, and how that might be different tomorrow, and even forecasting the tools and resources that are going to be available to us that might make something possible in the future that isn't necessarily possible today. So like
Mm.
creating space for where you're at in the journey and celebrating it, but knowing that like there's so much on the horizon that we haven't
Yeah.
tapped into yet. So still harnessing like hope.
Yeah, and the future is just as powerful as the past. So many of us, and a big thing that I am now, and I've known, but we just because we know it doesn't mean we're going to work on it necessarily. Something that I've known for a long time is I get frozen in fear, and I could get into lack and scarcity growing up on food stamps and being at the welfare office. Like it just, that idea of not having was very big within me, and seeing that, and it's so interesting looking at life when you're able to be aware enough and accountable enough to look back and see like, wow, I really was blocking my blessings and I was getting in my way by holding on to everything for with dear life and being so scared to move. And it's just so wild to look at charts, and so much of it is so validating. And what is something within a chart that you can tell someone who isn't too familiar with astrology and can just go online and look at their own chart? Where is a very easy area for them to look at to kind of get some cheat codes on where they're stuck?
That's such a good question. I think a great gateway is the sun, moon, rising. So, for those of you who have your birth time, you're able to pull your rising sign, which is the constellation rising when you took your first breath. And
Mhm.
so that can give you a lot of information. You can go to like, I love Chani Nicholas. She's a great astrologer, has great resources, her app, her website, but she has a generator. So that's, I feel like, almost an accessible resource, right? To see your chart if you haven't seen your chart. For those of you who don't have your birth time, I also rectify charts. So I've studied how to work with people who maybe don't even know the day. And so maybe they don't have, for whatever reason. And so through that, we can still zero in on a lot of information for you. So just, noting that at the top. But when you start with your rising sign, that's who you are, that's how you move through life. Is there anything in your first house for you to work with? It's available to you. And then you might look at where your sun and your moon is. What houses are they in? What themes are there for you? There's even like house systems to consider. I use whole sign houses. And so speaking about like scarcity, I totally understand because I have in one chart system Saturn in my second house. And so I do feel kind of restricted about money, and maybe money's bad because sometimes bad people do things with money, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
being able to like uncover those truths that like money is just an energy, and so, through looking at the lens and the pattern of astrology, I actually see Saturn in my third house through whole sign houses, where that's communication and daily rituals. And so, through me having boundaries and discipline and honoring, what it is that I hold dear, like what my values are, which is meaningful work. That
Mm.
might not be the same value for everyone, but for me, meaningful work in these conversations is what I need to do this. And so, through that, I center like, celebrating our culture, and we're actually healing from things that we didn't even necessarily experience. And so it would make sense that we might feel blocked in so many ways when we're trying to hold ourselves to like someone else's scoreboard.
Yeah.
And so, kind of redirecting and redefining your resources of there is actually a rich well of wisdom within you. And so, remembering that can help, feel like breaking through and transforming some blockages as like stepping stones. It's
Hmm.
alchemy. We use it all.
Yeah, it really is alchemy at the end of the day. And what we have going on right now on social media, the space, that it really is a blessing that we're more accepting of astrology, tarot, human design, whatever modality we're using, whatever tool we're using. But with that, there's a lot of fear based. Oh my God, the birds are going crazy. There's a
They're like,
lot of
oh,
like,
yeah.
yeah, they're like, speak on this. There's a lot of fear-based clickbait online, unfortunately, with a lot of people. And knowing your fears is good. Having faith over fear is beautiful, but seeing all the readers online, whether it's astrology, tarot, whichever way, and how there's a lot of fear clickbait. What are your thoughts with that? And what will you tell someone to get their power back? Because I'm very big on you control your happiness, you control your path. No one could force anything on you. What would you tell someone that's kind of in that fear-based state?
Yes, I think my first question is always why. Whenever I see something on social media that's like a TikTok astrologer saying things, I keep in mind that there's a difference from a TikTok tarot reader or astrologer or what have you versus someone who's like actually done the work with like mentors and real life experiences. And so not giving too much weight and what they have to say, first of all. But the way that my mind thinks is when they say something, I say, why? And
Mm.
so maybe you'll start to notice certain signs or placements have reputations. Scorpio, for example, very mysterious. Why? That's my question. Why?
Mm.
And so whenever I look into it, that can be really helpful to see there's so much nuance in your chart. So, for example, someone came to me and was so scared that they had a placement in a certain house, but whenever I looked at their chart through this ancient lens, they actually didn't have that placement at all.
Oh, wow.
And so it's just not being too connected to it
Yeah.
as if it dictates something. It's more of a helpful key that can be reflective. And so I think one of the reasons Scorpio has such a mysterious reputation, one, the ruler of Scorpio in ancient astrology is Mars, which represented the underworld and the warrior, and a lot of this
Oh.
energy, right? And then you have the modern ruler, which is Pluto, which is also very telling of Scorpio's energy, both ruling the underworld in different ways. And so that's one element of Scorpio's, deep well of energy. And then when you look at a Scorpio rising, their 10th house is Leo. And so there's just this kind of connection to like, even though you're Scorpio rising and you're mysterious, there is a call for you to be seen and witnessed in the 10th house. So deciding what that message is for you and what that flame or legacy that you're carrying forward is. And it's different for us all, but there's so much nuance. So whenever we see those like generalized things about like one sign's going to have a terrible year, I think why, and I start to look into it and I start to see why that might not even be the case.
And why are you still sleeping on your potential? I'm here to disrupt your spiritual programming. I'm so excited to finally share that my Patreon is open. This is where the real work begins. You can get access to me one-on-one via Patreon, exclusively available for paid members. You'll get weekly intuitive insights, journal prompts, and a community where we uplift each other. Join us on Patreon. Your evolution is waiting. Ties into the idea of root, and it goes, so I want to go back to school next year, looking to go get my master's to become a therapist. And this last 2.5 years, quitting my job, starting my business, figuring out what the business was, because I really had no plan. Like I was just like, I'm quitting my job, I got a couple bucks I could fall back on, and we'll just figure it out as we go. I'm a Sag moon, so I'm very much like, let's just go with the wind. I'm a hippie, it's fine, it's gonna be, we'll figure it out. So I did that. That was great, love that for me. And realizing the therapist route really is for me. And with that, a lot of people I do sessions with, they're like, you feel like a therapist. And I'm like, I'm trying to get to the root of the why this is happening. Why are you repeating the cycles? Why do you have these questions? Why are you so worried about John calling you tomorrow when clearly he is not going to call you tomorrow. So I love that you said the why. That really can unlock so much within us. And because high frequency questions get high frequency answers. You ask, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why do I keep getting every red light? The universe is kind of literal. It's going to be like, oh, so you need to be reminded why this is happening. Let me remind you versus why is it happening? What is the lesson here? So, how do you navigate lessons with clients in astrology?
I love the example of like with the red lights and stuff because I use something similar with certain aspects when I'm forecasting. I might forecast traffic or a roadblock, literally. And so there's like, this is a literal forecasting tool when you use it the ancient way. And so it might forecast car trouble or weather trouble. And so whenever I share those things with my clients, it helps them plan and maybe leave 15 minutes early. And so something for me that I have helped cope is I have a water bottle that I feel really comfortable. And so shout out your water bottle. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And so like for me, it's just like a good size, all of these things that it feels good to me. So for those moments that there are things outside of my control, what do? I drink my water and I take a deep breath because at least I have my water. I thought there might be traffic. There's traffic. I'm sitting at a roadblock. At least I'm chilling with my water for now. And so, and maybe I left 15 minutes early, so I'm actually not going to be late. So there's some kind of, calm aura around it. But just being able to like follow your intuition, if your intuition is saying maybe leave a little bit early. And then it's so nice to get validation from the clients later because more often than not, my clients are returning. Having done this work for 5 years, there's some people that I see monthly or quarterly or annually, but I have this relationship where we get to go back and be like, okay, what was it? And I've heard like lightning storms out of nowhere that allowed them to like get,
Wow.
and just like things like that. And so it's like, truly, sometimes things happen outside of our control, but what can we do in those moments? How can we see it as like an opportunity to like pour into ourselves even?
We could, what can you control? I love to tell people. And you can control your happiness. You can control how you respond and not react. Reacting is like very hot. It's fire energy. It's like, I'm just gonna burn it all down. I'm so pissed off versus I'm gonna respond. I'm gonna take a minute. I'm gonna be a little bit more logical, take that Capricorn energy in there and be like, chill, pause, breathe, take the emotions are beautiful. I have a whole tattoo about emotions because when I was little, everyone's like, you're so emotional. You're so dramatic, but as an adult and doing this and realizing and what I've learned, I'm like, emotions are a superpower. They really let you know what's good, what you can work on. And I think the idea, like you were saying, forecasting traffic and staying ready so you don't got to get ready. And someone like yourself that clearly you have so much beyond education, it's in your DNA coming from your Tías, being taught what you were taught at such a young age. Let's talk a little bit about your life's journey and how this came to be and what made you choose this as your profession essentially.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I love that question because I don't think I ever chose this as my profession. I never thought that was an option,
Hmm.
right? Like whenever we're young and we see what we can be when we grow up, I didn't see astrologer. And so, granted, I would see, my tias or hear story about their tias and about how they were always curanderas, which, are healers. So people
Hmm.
community members would always come to them and ask them questions or gain insight or guidance. So that type of energy has always been around. And so I think for me, because I don't necessarily see this work as like a profession, I see it as just something to return to and remember and like celebrate in community. And I'm so grateful that like when I do that, I'm able to put food on the table and provide for myself. But I actually do it in a different way, I feel, looking at my birth chart. And so something that was really important to me when deciding to like offer this was to always offer a sliding scale or pay what you decide. Because I guess when people started the ability to book a reading with me, it was about 2020. It was my Saturn return, and I was actually working for, I'll say, a travel app company. And it checked a lot of boxes, like with benefits, but I was miserable. And I remember thinking, this is not my future. I cannot do this until I retire. And I remember being around other people who were like, well, it is like, this is kind of what, yeah, this is
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen. And I remember just like an internal knowing being like, no, I do not
Mm.
accept this. No,
Yeah,
this
I
time,
don't accept
no.
it.
Yeah, no. And then, sure enough, March of 2020, so we started working from home, and eventually they laid us all off. But I got to keep my laptop, which I'm talking to you on now, and I never had a
Mm.
laptop before. So this then created an opportunity for me to start pursuing like remote lessons and mentorships, and seeking diversity scholarships and being able to
Mm.
access some things in my chart that allowed me to get into rooms and take mentorships with people I couldn't have imagined to be, in conversation with through looking at my chart and seeing where I could access some streams of support. And so through looking at my chart, I was able to access mentorships and years where I felt like I was the student really like healing myself first. Like I needed this
Yeah.
medicine for myself before I could go off and help others. And so that's what I did for a while, for years. Like, I mean, of course, to this day still, but truly, like, I wasn't offering anything because I was receiving. And through that, it was the time where I was losing my Tías in this, realm. And so as they passed on and I became a Tía, I knew that I had to create this offering for others
Hmm.
and that it was bigger than me. And so it was about 2021 where I started to realize I could create a platform to where people could book with me. At first it was just kind of like hopping in my DMs, we'd meet.
Yeah.
But then I was like, okay, I need a calendar. And so I started setting up these systems and using my astrology chart to think like, what is my astrology chart telling me to do now? And one of the things it told me to do was like create a mailing list. And I'm like, of
Mm.
course, people have mailing, like, of course, but like, I didn't know what I
Yeah.
was doing. I just had a laptop. And so I created a mailing list and kind of like auto sent it to everyone who booked a reading with me. Forgot about it, naturally, doing a lot of stuff. I'm an astrologer and trying to start a business. And so, like, through that, then I was able to return to it when I remembered, like, a year later and had like hundreds of testimonies from people. And so, through that, then I was
Mm.
like, oh, I should put this on my website. And so, it's kind of like just taking those like intuitive messages and seeing what the season calls for to create, what's right for you at that time.
Yeah.
And so for me, because I talk about my tia so much and like being Latina and coming from Texas and just everything that I do is really centered and like liberating and remembering and equality. And so because of that, the people that aren't for me don't come to me, and that's lovely. And the people
Yeah.
that are for me, like every single person I talk to is someone like you who's doing something so badass. And like I just am genuinely like excited to talk to every single person that I talk to. And
Yeah.
so, like, even whenever you mentioned you have a Sagittarius moon and I'm a Sagittarius rising, like, we find
Yeah.
these patterns within ourselves. And that connection is Jupiter. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, abundance, the teacher, protection, but like
Mm.
the good ancestor, you know what I mean? Like, Saturn, I
Yeah.
feel like, is the elder that's like, are you, XYZ? And Jupiter's like, I have a little bit of this. It's okay.
Yeah.
Come on, it'll all work out. Yeah, you just got to visualize it. And so working with your Jupiter then gives us a nuance and a timing. So it's such like
Hmm.
a rich practice to kind of reflect on your patterns and see like what you should be doing now. So
Yeah.
just kind of like following that path. I'm here and I do this work full time. I have since, 2020. And I'm just so grateful, whether it's like in-person readings, which are so
Hmm.
great, but a lot of my work is remote because I get to talk to people all over.
Yeah.
And so then mentorships, I think, are probably my favorite thing about what I do because that's when people come to me monthly or quarterly or whenever feels right to you. But we get to work on what's your path? Where's your
Yeah.
Jupiter? Like, where's Jupiter now? And what does that mean for you? And it's so exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, to be able to uncover, and again, the validation too. So uncover, get some clarity. Contrast is beautiful. That's a really big shift I've made in my perspective these last 2.5 years, almost 3 years now, starting this business is changing the story. Because what story are you telling as well? Because for what I've been through, can easily be like, it was all a failure. It was all for nothing. what did I do that for? But looking at it like, no, because I actually applied for my master's in 2022 when I was still working. And I did the giant paper, I did the interview with the board, I went through everything and I got in to the program. And then my spirit team was like, stop it. Like, this is cute. I love where the head's at, but it's not time. You're not ready for that yet. You got a lot to work on. Looking back and realizing what my story is, and it's about the expansion, the authenticity, getting out of that fear, getting out of that scarcity is like, okay, now I got it. And now I got it. And I'm working on, well, I am selling my house right now. So that was something I was really scared to do. But I'm like, no, that house was almost a business. Like I did Airbnb with it. I did so much with it and letting it go with love and light and knowing that in letting it go, it's going to help someone else. And by helping someone else, I'm helping myself. So retelling the story and having sessions with someone like yourself that could give you like a bird's eye view and be like, look, this is what you've done. This is what you can do. What do you want to do? So let everyone know what do you offer the collective as far as services go to help them clear their path.
Yeah, I really cater every single reading to that person. And so every reading is a little bit different. I'll start with looking at your birth chart, and then we'll go on a custom journey based off of what you want to explore, what your questions are. And more often than not, a lot of people are just like, tell me what you see. And I
Hmm.
can go off past, present, or future. And so it's really fun to just kind of connect and celebrate, where you are now and maybe what your goals are, what you're hoping to like work towards, what your intentions might be, what makes sense for right now. And then the plants. The plants can be really helpful to bridge almost like a medicine, from the cosmos to the roots. And so I always say, like, we can't do it alone. And so sometimes we need a little help from the natural world, whether it's
Hmm.
plants or animals. So also reflecting on like that indigenous ancient language and medicine that's available to us there. Well, then also inviting in rituals. So I'll pull some cards, tarots and self-care ritual cards, and we'll kind of create, a certain plan that's right for you. But there's so much nuance and it's different for everyone. So sometimes if people already know their birth chart, maybe they're interested in looking at astrocartography, which is my
Hmm.
favorite as, Sagittarius
Yes.
energy. Let's look at the map, let's see what's what. And that is so fascinating. It's like a relocated chart and seeing how your chart may be different based off where you live. And so, like, in Texas, I'm a Sagittarius rising, but with my relocated chart in Portland, I'm a Scorpio rising. And so, like, helping people see those things and how like, you can celebrate it and like tap into your skill and talents in different ways in different
Hmm.
places. And so just kind of celebrating what that means for you this year, because every year,
Yeah.
there's different transits. And for this last year, every single planet changed signs, which isn't the case. Like that normally doesn't happen. Like Pluto hadn't really like changed a sign since like 2008.
Wow.
Truly, right? And like just 2 days ago, Uranus entered Gemini for the first time in like 75 years.
Whoa.
And so, right, and so truly, like here we are. This is the first time that we've been alive where either of these planets are in these signs. And I feel like we've
Hmm.
been waiting for these activations. So I just feel like I have a megaphone and I get to tell people, yeah, it's now. That thing you've been waiting for, it is now. And so
Hmm.
sometimes we're still like caught in those old loops, like you've mentioned. And so our bodies, the subconscious is saying, no, it's not safe, no. But I get to look at this sky and say, look, guys, there is a different season here. How can we build a relationship with it? What does it start? What does it look like? When
Yeah.
does the first act start? Give us some timelines, a calendar to work with. Because, yeah, there is like a blend of like an intuitive approach, but also looking at the math and being like, it's yes, yes, you
The
are a
math is
spiritual
mathing.
teacher. Whether, you're comfortable with it or not, you are here for a greater path. And so
Hmm.
just getting comfortable with that, what does that look like today?
Yeah. I love the idea of using the map too in your chart because again with I resonate right now at this phase in life. I resonate heavy with my Sag moon and I've moved twice in the last year very intentionally. And I had my numerology gal pull the numbers for I'm in San Diego and I was like, let me know how San Diego is going to go for me and it was a go. And even in areas because I know there's going to be areas that call to me and most likely aren't going to be too aligned but I really feel something there. And I'm very big with pushing the envelope and I like to And this is in my chart too. I definitely like to put myself in predicaments where it's very uncomfortable and very hard because I need to learn in those environments sometimes. And, being, childhood trauma like we all have, being raised in chaos, it feels good sometimes to me. And life happens for you and not to you. So,
So true. And while like I honor and respect that without a doubt, sometimes I get to look at the chart and see where things could be easy
hmm
and where we don't have to struggle. Because so many of the people I talk to, yes, that's our story. We've come, like, we don't get to relax. We don't get to, we've
yeah,
had to be in control in order to be safe and get us where we are, you know?
yeah,
No one helped us get to where we are right now. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And so just kind of like acknowledging that, like, while it feels like that, we have these, like, marginalized experiences and voices, but maybe there's an opportunity to also channel a harmonious flow
yeah.
and celebrate some trines, which would be that Jupiter aspect of like, what do you need? I got you. And it's maybe
hmm
like your connection with the universe, like I bet you have some trines, the way that you're expressing, manifesting green lights, everyone's different. And some people have that magic and I love it. And you're like, yes, let's do it. But some other people work differently than that,
Yeah.
and it's just cool to see how we all tap into it differently.
Yeah, and that's a big thing for me right now. I've been very masculine my whole life. Like I said, being on my own since I was so young, I had to be masculine. I had to be the protector. I had to be everything for myself. And I'm in this phase now of like, I'm in my princess era. Like, bring it to me, universe. I'm gonna work with the least amount of effort, take inspired action. I still got to put the effort out, but inspired action versus the obsessive. And I'm like, just bring it to me. I'm ready. I'm in my soft girl era.
I really hear those keywords, and I have to share because I have it in mind too. It reminds me of Pallas Athene, an asteroid in the birth chart. And all of these asteroids, the four goddess asteroids, can really represent like those who care and are here for liberation and something, bigger. And so I see those prominently in the people that I speak to because like we're here for create
Interesting.
something better, yeah, help everyone. And so with Palestine, I hear this story of like being a warrior goddess and having to grow up too soon, being born full adult from the head of your father in golden armor to overcome your brother Ares.
Wow.
And so when I see a prominent Palestine in so many of my clients' chart, I know that's all of us coming together and having to grow up too soon. We shouldn't have been 15 or 16 having to do some of the things that we had to do. And
hmm
inviting in like compassion for the inner child and bringing them in with like who we are now and going back to those versions of ourselves and saying, thank you, you were right. Let's go,
Yeah.
you know?
hmm
And so, yeah, I just think there's so much healing that can be done beyond view. And I think the
Yeah.
stars are a great gateway, whether it's plants or tarot or numerology, whatever your tool might be for reflection. But I think it's a part of, connecting that relationship to your intuition and that inner knowing,
Yeah.
healing
Yeah, I
together.
love that. Healing together and healing through having our children too, other people. And there, I know there's so many, and I think it's so amazing that so many women nowadays are like, I don't want to have kids. That's not my vibe. And I'm like, yeah, like make that choice. That is your choice to do that. I've never lived on my own. Like I met my kid's dad when I was 16. We moved in together essentially instantly. Like I was at his house all the time. Then we actually moved in together at 18 and we were together until 32. I had kids at that point. So I've never lived on my own before. And I'm so excited for them to start their lives and to move out on their own and I could live on my own and we're all independent. And yesterday my daughter called me and or my child, they identify as male, they're biological female. So I'm doing my best to honor their choices in life. They're at the movies and they're like, "We don't know how to buy a movie." Like they're freaking out. They don't know how to buy a movie ticket. And I low-key got mad a little bit. I was like, "How do you not know how to buy a movie ticket?" And I was like, you don't have to do things like this in life because I take care of so much for you. And they're 15. Like they have nothing of the life that I had at 15. And I have to remind myself of that because there's little things that I'm like, how do you not know how to do that? And I'm like, oh, you're not supposed to. You're 15. You have a mom that takes care of you. So it's like in helping them, it's healing me.
Right. And you're
So,
ending the cycle. Like, the of having to grow up too soon. And so that
hmm
right there is like celebrated.
yeah.
And yeah, meeting people where they are is even like at that age. I think about that age a lot. And at first I think about like, oh gosh, yes, it's, just the basic things of being 15 alone. There's enough to,
Yeah.
you know. But then I think about like the transits and the patterns that we experience. And there's a big one at like 14 and 15. And then it happens again around like 40, 44.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
like, what's so funny to me is whenever I see, a child's chart and a parent's chart or whoever's chart I'm looking at, sometimes they're going through the same pattern at different ages.
Yeah.
And then that can invite in more compassion and understanding.
Yeah.
So it's really helpful to just have a few more tools of reflection to like accept and celebrate truly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do their charts with you then because I've done
Yeah.
numerology with them. In the first one, her and I have the same numbers as far as like life path and all that fun stuff goes. So, like you said, her and I are, them and I are always going through the same things, but just obviously at their age and my age. So interesting. Life is just, oh my gosh, when you use these tools, it can be so fascinating and expanding.
And so beautiful to just create space to remember and really redefine our resources, mystifying
Yeah.
the mundane. That's how we sustain ourselves
Mm.
for the revolution.
Period. That part. I love it. I love that part. I think we should definitely end on that note because that was just perfectly put. I want to let everyone know where can they find you, how can they book a session and socials.
Yes, I am Cara State of Mind on Instagram and TikTok. And I have a link to my website so you can book a remote reading with me. Or if you're in Portland, I do in-person readings at Psychic Sister. It's this really cool, like vintage crystal old ballroom. And so you can check my website to see if you're in Portland, you can book with me in person, or my mentorship on Patreon, where you pay a subscription like 11 a month or 44 a month, but then you meet with me monthly and you get that one-on-one time with me to touch base with your chart and your intentions and what you're working towards. And I would say that's probably one of my favorite things to do daily is to meet with like my mentees and to just create a space on Patreon. We just read Latin Herbalism and I'm getting to
Mm.
interview the author today and I hosted like
Yeah.
this space to where she came into Portland at Psychic Sister. And so I'm just like so grateful to create community because there's so many of us who have similar questions or
Hmm.
stories or journeys, and to just come together and be like, okay, like we might feel nuts in, certain spaces where people don't share, our vision. But
Hmm.
it's so powerful when we come together and just remember, like, okay, like it's totally normal to care about people. It's totally normal to have emotions and to feel angry, even
Yes.
about what the heck is happening in the world. And maybe we have to do things a little bit differently than we've seen done in the last 100 years, because maybe that tradition is actually oppression. And so let's
Mm.
remember deeper back. And so I think there's a lot available to us to just create space to do that.
I love that. And there definitely is a shift. I'm not going to even go down that tangent because I could go on and on,
Yeah,
but
you got
there
another
is
hour. Let's
definitely,
go.
yeah, part two. So we
Right.
got, that's definitely a beautiful space. And I love the Patreon because I'm really big, like you said, sustainability and tools. How can you help yourself without our assistance? Because that really is the goal. And being on Patreon and learning from you directly and working with you, highly recommend that. That's beautiful.
I'm so excited. And it's cool because I didn't even know Patreon existed before. So like every day there's going to be like new tools available to you that maybe allow you
Yeah.
to, express yourself. So I just like to share my story so other people can be like, wait, I can do that? Yeah, you can. You should do that. Let's do it.
Yep, you are powerful. Again, you are the medicine. You have the answers. I want to ask you one last question, and that is if we made a movie about your life and there was a theme song that would be played for that movie, what would the song be?
I love this question. I am so terrible at remembering names of songs, but I listened
Same.
to this playlist that's called I'm Thriving. So like search it on whatever platform, I'm sure. But every song is like manifesting. It's like
Mhm.
reclaiming your power. But I notice this one song always comes on and I really like lock in when it does. And it's called Faith's Hymn, Beautiful Chorus. And I feel like that's a really great one to just put on whenever you're like making your coffee and journaling or pulling a card, but just having your morning rituals. That's an ancient practice of like lighting the hearth flame before we
Mm.
kept time. And so just remembering, like, whether it's music or connecting to the elements or whatever your intentions are, but there's so much power in just kind of like locking in and finding that like mercurial flow.
Yeah, I love that. Shout out to morning rituals. If you don't have them, get them. They are game changers.
Yeah, and I saw my tias have their morning rituals, and it's so cool to see like how, they've shifted now. We're a little bit different. Maybe I sit with my
Yeah,
crystals but yeah, just kind of celebrating those morning
you.
rituals.
I love it. Beautiful. This has been so amazing. You are absolutely just heaven sent. I appreciate your time so much.
Thank you so much for reaching out. This was such an honor to speak to you. I love your podcast, and I'm so grateful for just like to hold an hour with you and to talk about all of this. So don't hesitate to reach out if you want me to like check your chart. I got you. I do trade. So I'm happy to like continue.
Yes, 100%. So much goodness. Cheers. We're like halfway through the year, so let it be a great one.
Oh, and it's just starting.
Cliffhanger.
Clearly, yeah. Thank you.
That is, oh my God. Okay, we're gonna dive deep into that next time.
Yeah, I'll be a recurring. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, recurring guest. You're so funny. Thank you so much. All right, bye.